Ladies and gentlemen, today I'd like to show you the W6N8000 Exclusive. This is the bigger version of our previous top model W6N8000. Big is the clue here. You see, we have a really big case. Between the needle and the housing we have a passage of 20 centimeters. This machine is also equipped with a knee lever. It is used to raise and lower the presser foot. It's basically your third hand. The W6N8000 Exclusive also has a magnifying glass, so you can really see what you're doing when threading. Of course, this is a free arm sewing machine. Sleeves and trouser legs can be comfortably placed under the needle. You have a compartment here in the front of the extension table, and of course you have a compartment in the back. The machine has a total of 466 stitches, including 3 different alphabets. We have regular print letters, cursive letters and also 3 double-stitched letters. Of course, all in upper and lower case and also with the special characters. Moreover, the machine comes with a completely new designed display. It's a color display, of course, but we've now changed the design to make it even easier to use. And the 8000 Exclusive comes with a hard protection case. This machine can be transformed into a full-featured embroidery machine in no time at all. You can order the embroidery unit W6EU7 as an option. Then you can choose from 150 permanently programmed patterns that can be embroidered with a hoop size of up to 250 mm by 150 mm. You can also use the Hatch embroidery software included with the embroidery unit to manage the embroidery designs on your PC. Overall, the embroidery unit can process up to 50,000 stitches. 4 hoop sizes are optionally available. The scope of delivery of the W6EU7 includes a hoop of 200 by 130 mm. So, ladies and gentlemen, now let's go back to the magnifying glass for a moment. With the magnifying glass we can see through here. For example, you can see the eye of the needle very clearly from here. I'm going to take the magnifying glass off now because I want to explain the knee lever to you in more detail. Let me properly sit in front of the machine. You see, now when I push the lever with my knee, the presser foot is raised. Now I could comfortably position my fabric. When I go back with my knee, the presser foot lowers, so you can work very precisely with it, because it also gives you much more comfort. In principle, you have free hands now. That's fantastic. So, as I said before, the machine has a large case. With a large case, you also have a large work surface. This large work surface is illuminated by 4 LED HQ lamps. 2 are up here in the arm of the machine and 2 are by the needle, so you can see really well when you're working in the dark, for instance. As you know, this is a free arm machine. You can store your favorite sewing feet on top racks so that you can always find them right away. Of course, there's more room below, more storage, and we have additional storage room in the back as well. The throat plate has a centimeter division. At the front you have the division in centimeters and at the back in inches. The lines help you guide your fabric to ensure straight stitching and even seam allowances. The machine is equipped with a smooth-running double rotary hook, which also has a quick threading system. You can bring the bobbin thread up if you want to do a pull test to see if you threaded it correctly, but you don't have to. Of course, the machine comes with an automatic threader, and under the threader is the buttonhole scanner. As we come further up, you'll see the Start-Stop button here. When you press the Start-Stop button once, the machine starts running. When you press it again, the machine stops. This is highly beneficial for ergonomic sewing. You can sit straight in front of the machine and don't need to put a foot forward or to the side to press the foot controller. Next is the backstitching button. It has 2 functions. Either you can do conventional backstitching or you can set spot stitching via the display. Both methods are activated by this button. The needle function button is located up here. Before each threading operation, please press the needle function button once so that the needle goes up and press it a second time so that the needle and the thread hook go up. If you have done this, then the needle and also the thread hook, which is located behind this cover, are in the correct position for threading. You can't do anything wrong here now. However, this button has a second function. There's a turtle symbol. If you control the machine via the Start-Stop button and approach a corner or the end of the seam, for example, then you can also press the turtle button briefly and the machine will run very slowly, so you can stitch and stop precisely. In addition, the machine is also equipped with an electronic thread cutter. The electronic thread cutter cuts the upper and lower thread simultaneously. Both thread tails are kept under the fabric. This is very comfortable. But please remember one thing. As soon as you have pressed this button, you'll hear the machine rattling and rumbling while the thread cutter is working. Please always wait until any movements and noises have ceased and only then lift the presser foot. The speed control is located here to the right. Of course, when you use the start-stop button, the speed control first sets the speed at which you want to sew. It's about halfway at the moment. Now, if you were to work with the start-stop button, you'd be sewing at about half speed. If you use the foot controller, that's the top speed limit. That means if you connect the foot pedal, the machine would never reach full speed, no matter how hard you'd press the pedal, because this slider is set to half speed. The machine has a total of 466 programs. Here we have the utility stitches with 13 buttonhole programs. Next is the decorative stitch section here with motif stitches, nostalgic stitches, satin stitches, quilting stitches and even patchwork stitches are included. I'm sure you'll find some matching stitches for your project. And we have 3 alphabets, as I said. This is very important. So there are the uppercase letters and lowercase letters and the special characters and also the numbers. And as I said, all letters are available in regular print, in cursive and also in double-stitched lettering. The machine can do horizontal or vertical mirroring and even both ways simultaneously, but more on that later. Now let's take a look at our redesigned display. You see the first symbol. If you press it, you enter the utility stitches. There you have 64 different programs. If you press here once, then you see here page 1 of 4 and you can scroll forward. Page 2 of 4, 3 of 4, 4 of 4 and if you scroll further it starts at page 1 again. Now when your desired stitch is displayed, just tap that. The program is now shown here. It's stitch number 14. Presser foot A is recommended. The machine is currently programmed with needle down. If you want to do spot stitching, select this. Then you see spot stitching here. If I tap that again, it's spot stitching and automatic cutting. The function is controlled by the backstitching button. With this setting, the machine will do spot stitching and cut the threads at the end of a seam. You can change that setting anytime, it's no problem. This is a real-time preview. This means that the selected stitch, number 14, triple zigzag, is displayed exactly as it's sewn. See, when I lower the stitch width, the image changes. Now I'll lower the stitch length and increase the width. You see? Then the image changes in real time. You always see the stitch in the preview as it will be sewn. The thread tension on the machine is of course automatic. When you tap this button, you'll see the thread tension. There you can make any changes. If you ever want to do shirring, that's definitely necessary. But normally in 95% of all sewing operations, the machine adjusts the tension automatically. This is the return button. By pressing that, you can always go back a step. Now, when you want to exit the utility stitches and access the decorative stitches, there's the home button. Just press it, then you can enter the decorative stitches, for instance. There are the decorative stitches here and the 3 different alphabets here. Selecting and setting is exactly the same as with the utility stitches. Just select one and then you can do the settings. But more on that later. So what else do we have here? You have a memory with 4 locations for your favorite stitch patterns. If you have 4 favorite names in your family that you sew often, you can save them here. Even if you turn the machine off, the machine will remember those. Question mark. Here you can be shown how to insert the bobbin, how to thread or how to change the presser foot. The machine can guide you through those processes. And back here you have some of the factory settings. You can switch off the beeping sound or the illumination, for example. That can be easily done in this menu, no problem at all. On the left side of the machine head there is the knob for the presser foot pressure. There you now have 5 levels available from very low to very high. What is the lowest level for? The very low pressure would be useful when sewing jersey or very stretchy fabrics, so that you prevent your fabric from stretching or creasing. And the very high pressure, just as an example, can be used when sewing buttonholes in thick fabrics. If you want to sew on buttons with the machine, do free motion quilting, or if you ever want to use an embroidery unit with this machine, then you need to have the ability to lower the feed dog. To do this, slide the extension table out to the left, and back here you can see the switch. Shift it towards the machine to lower the feed dog. When you shift it back, please bear in mind that it won't be pushed up immediately. Where is it? You need to do about 4 to 5 full turns with the hand wheel for the feed dog to be fully up again. See, there it comes up again. Let's talk about accessories. This machine comes with a dusting brush. Also a second spool pin here if you ever want to sew with a twin needle, a large screwdriver and a small one. The small rounded one is very handy for loosening the throat plate, a seam ripper, a button sewing foot, a 1/4-inch foot for patchworking, a zipper foot, a blind stitch foot. This is the buttonhole foot. A satin stitch foot is also included, the rolled hem foot, the overlock foot, the free motion quilting foot, and here you also have a cording foot. The scope of delivery also includes a quilting guide. Here you see only 3 bobbins, but there are 4 bobbins included, the 4th is in the machine. Then there is a large spool stopper and also a small spool stopper. The small spool stopper should be preferably used, it's already in the machine, a needle set and a felt. Next I want to show you how to thread the machine. To do this, I first need to load the bobbin, of course. Down here, please open the bobbin case, take off the cover and there you have your bobbin. Now place the bobbin right up here onto the bobbin winder. Done. Okay, let's continue. Next you need a spool of thread and you can now see the small spool stopper already mounted. There it is. Let's see. Find the thread end and place the spool of thread onto the spool pin and the stopper in front of the spool. Now this is very important. The spool must be in horizontal position. Push the stopper onto the spool so that there is no space between the stopper and the spool, otherwise the thread would get stuck in that gap. Here we go. Start at 1, guide the thread behind 1, then down and around the deflector. Number 2 is back here. Now look, there's a metal hook for the thread to go through. Hold tight and snap it in. Next is the winder tension. The thread goes around the hook from behind and around the tension disc in counterclockwise direction. When you're using smooth threads by W6, the large 1000 meter spools, please wind the thread around twice. Pull your thread over to the winder. Now press the bobbin winder to the right, and this is something special. It's a quick winding device. With this, you no longer have to pull the thread through the bobbin from the inside to the outside, but just wind it around the bobbin a few times, once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, then guide it down under the little hook and pull it to the right. That also cuts your thread. So you see, threading for winding the bobbin is correct. We've gone around the bobbin tension twice, and now I only need to do one thing, start the machine, and it will load the bobbin. You see, as soon as the bobbin is full, the machine stops automatically. At the side there is a spring-loaded metal stopper. Now when the bobbin is full, it sends a signal to the machine to stop. Now push the bobbin winder back to the left, take off the bobbin and cut the thread, like this. Now you have to insert the bobbin in the case. The bobbin is loaded. First, place the bobbin on your work surface like this. If you place the thread like this, it forms the letter C for correct. If you pull the thread a little, the bobbin turns counterclockwise. This means that the bobbin is the right way round. Now it just has to go into the bobbin case. There's one thing you need to remember. Down here is the thread tension. If you look here, there's a groove at 6 o'clock. That's where you have to pull the thread in. And that's where the spring for the lower thread tension is. If you place it in too loosely and it doesn't snap in properly between 6 and 9 o'clock, you run the risk that the tension is not correct and your seam will be all wonky and uneven. So drop the bobbin into the case. Hold it with one finger and see, there. He has to go under that hook and now listen, a snapping sound at 6 o'clock. And another one at 9 o'clock. Clack. And now really pull tight at this point and you'll notice the thread's taut. The tension is correct. Pull it around this elliptic disc and cut it off. Now we close the cover and the bobbin is inserted. Next you need to thread the upper thread. As I said earlier, it's very important that the thread hook, which is located behind this cover, and also the needle are in the correct position. Please press the needle function button once and press the needle function button a second time. Now the thread hook and the needle are in the correct position for threading. Take your thread, reel off about 20 to 30 centimeters and hold the spool with one hand. Here we go, behind 1, then down around the deflector. Look, all you have to do now is follow the arrows. 2, over to 3, then towards you and down, around 4. If your thread is too short, just pull and reel off a little more. Up here is 5 and then back down. Right in front of the needle we have another hook. Guide the thread through there, and then there is the automatic threader. Push that down and it will engage. It's waiting for you, so to say. Hook the thread into the little arm on the left of the threader bar, then guide it to the right and through the metal threader, then slightly to the back and upwards. Now you see, the thread is caught in the hook, and that's what we want. If you like, you can now also cut the thread to length. That gives you the right thread length for sewing. Press the threader down. It will pull the thread through the needle eye and to the back. You can see the loop here. Pull it out and done. Now you can do a tension test. So the thread goes through the needle. Lower the presser foot. This closes the thread tension and then give the thread a tug. There's a lot of tension there. See how the needle bends. That means your upper thread is properly tensioned. You can double check that for the lower thread as well. How to do that? Raise the foot, press the needle function button once, press the needle function button again, and the bobbin thread will come up to the surface. There it is. Pull that and hopefully you feel some tension. It must be a little hard to pull, and if you look closely through the cover, you see that from this groove the bobbin thread runs diagonally across the bobbin to the back. If the bobbin thread runs straight away from back here, then the machine is not threaded correctly and the thread will be much easier to pull. So you have now made a tension test for both the upper thread and the lower thread. Both must be hard to pull, and you know your threading is correct. So now we can begin. If you want to change your thread to another color, for example, please do the following. Cut the thread up here. Do not pull it out at the top, you see. Just cut it here and then pull the thread out downwards. In the past, you pulled out the thread with the spool. You took off the spool from the pin and pulled everything out backwards. When you do that, the thread will get tangled up in here somewhere, and that's not good. This way it's much easier and safer for you. Back here at the shank there's a black button for the foot change. Press it and the presser foot falls off. Snap-on feet are used with this machine. That means the feet have a bar here and this presser foot holder actually just needs to engage in that bar. Place the foot on the throat plate. Make sure it aligns precisely. It snaps into place. You heard it go clack. The foot is engaged again. This allows you to attach any presser foot as desired. Let me put it this way, trying to save money is not a bad thing at all. But we are also aware that there are poor quality products on the market, especially when it comes to threads, needles or bobbins. Poor quality thread will tend to break and shed lint. It'll spoil your thread tension and may even damage the tensioners. Supposedly standardized needles that do not have the same length can't be standardized, and your machine will not sew properly. Also bobbins that are not original W6 will not work either. Only the original bobbin really fits the W6 WERTARBEIT case. Some bobbins are too narrow, some are too wide. It's really actually not worth it. Therefore, we always recommend buy original parts from us. They are excellent quality at reasonable prices. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's start sewing. The first thing I want to sew is 2 straight parallel seams. To do that, we use the blind stitch foot, because the blind stitch foot, let me show you, has a very handy guiding edge here. This enables us to sew particularly straight, just as in industrial production. You find the straight stitch in the utility stitch section. So press this once. Now let's use the straight stitch with the needle on the left. In the bottom line you can set the needle offset. I'll sew the first seam without any offset, so I leave the value at 0, 0 and I set the machine to half speed. Now I do a few stitches forward. Then I want a back stitch to secure the seam and carry on sewing forward. At the end I stop. I press the thread cutter and wait until the machine has finished. Please do the same and only lift the foot when the noise and movements of the machine have ceased. Now I want to do my second seam next to it. With the previous seam I backstitched at the beginning and end. This time I want to do spot stitching. First I need to move the needle over. So I'll set the offset to about 4. 4.4 is fine. Now, spot stitching. That's quite neat, since the machine does a few stitches on the spot and continues sewing. At the end, stop, press the cutter button, wait until it's finished. Now, there's no more noise, I can take out the fabric and take a look. You see, we have 2 really nice parallel seams, one with back stitching, the other with spot stitching. Next I want to show you how to sew stretchy fabrics. If you use a regular straight stitch for stretchy fabrics, sewing will not be a problem, but if you try to pull the fabric while putting on your garment, the seams will crack. Then the seam is broken and you have to redo everything. Nobody wants that. So I press the return button. That takes you back to utility stitches and there you select the oblique straight stitch. You can choose the one with the needle in the center or the one with the needle on the left. Let's use the one with the needle in the center. The recommended presser foot is displayed. Place the fabric in the machine, lower the foot, and off you go. If the fabric is extremely stretchy, you could also adjust the foot pressure here. There are 5 pressure levels. For stretchy fabrics, choose level 2 or 1. In this case, my settings are alright. The fabric remains straight. The machine stops. So I've reached the end. Cut the threads. As I said, please press the cutter button only once and wait. Take out your fabric. You see it's stretchy. The seam has enough give and the stitching looks great. Next I want to do a really stable seam for trouser crutches or bags with a lot of wear. This seam is really sturdy, much more stable than your regular straight stitch since the machine does triple stitches. Return to the program overview. That's program number 7 or 8. 8 with the needle on the left, 7 with the needle in the center. The machine performs 3 stitches in one spot before continuing. That's very stable. So we've reached the end. Stop, cut. Now let's take a look at it. You can see that looks good, really great. And now I could even try pulling the layers apart. If I pull here, honestly, it'll never break. Imagine this as your crotch seam or in a tote or bag. You'll never lose your wallet again. A free motion quilting foot is included in the accessories of the machine. I've attached that already. I lowered the feed dog and here we have a piece of quilt, foot down. For this you need the regular straight stitch with the needle in the center. Just tap it. This stitch is available as a quick select option here. Then start the machine and off you go. Free motion quilting is that easy. Press the cutter button and wait for the machine to finish. Oh, here I caught a little thread tail. Let me just remove that. Now look, quite honestly, the thread tension is perfect and the stitching looks fantastic. You can also use programmed stitches for quilting. Now let's see, number 9. Press return. I'm going to show you this. Number 9 is a program that sews 2 stitches forward and 1 back. You can use a monofilament thread as upper thread and your project will look like you hand quilted it. It's a copycat stitch, so to speak. If you can't be bothered to hand quilt, use monofilament as your upper thread and regular sewing thread in the bobbin. And with this program, you'll basically only see every other stitch. Looks like it was hand quilted, but it's machine sewn. But please be careful, don't try to press your monofilament sewn quilt. Monofilament is plastic material and may melt. Now you cannot only use the machine for quilting, but also for patchworking. Here you have the patchwork programs. Let's access them for a second. This is program number 26, return. The first page displays 18 programs. So browse forward once and there is program number 26, recommended presser foot, and you can start patchworking. Now let's do a zigzag stitch. You can select a zigzag via the quick select button. I'd like to show you how to sew a rolled hem. For that you need a width of 3 mm and a length of about 0.4. I have to lower the length a bit. 6, 5, 4 like this. Now you can sew a rolled hem. Position your fabric and you're good to go. In the past it was used for finishing raw edges, but that is not done anymore. You have much better programs in the machine for that. And what else you can do with this stitch is to check thread tension. So we've reached the end. Cut the threads, raise the foot. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a rolled hem. For better clarity, I'm operating the machine with a touch pen, but of course you can also use your fingers. You can also use the triple zigzag to do some shirring with elastic band. That's not a problem. You don't need to change any adjustments. So you can tap the display with the stylus end of this pen or with your fingers. Please do not tap it with the ball pen end. That will destroy the display. Now let's take a look. We place the elastic. The result I'm optioning for is neat elastic shirring. Alright, here we go. Stretch the elastic a little, not too much. Cut the threads. So, ladies and gentlemen, and here you see a perfectly shirred elastic fabric. Just perfect. Next, I'd like to show you an overlock stitch. This is program number 17, sewing and finishing in one operation with presser foot C. I have already mounted C. Position your fabric and let's go. As you've seen, it was easy to neatly align and guide the fabric along the guiding edge. And this bar in the middle reduces the upper thread tension. Therefore, please do not change the original settings of the stitch that are pre-programmed in the machine. If you change anything, there's a risk of the needle hitting the bar and then either the needle or, if you are unlucky, the foot will break. Now, here's what it looks like, sewing and finishing in one operation. Next I want to show you how to do a blind stitch. This is program number 24 from the utility stitches. I'll use presser foot D for that. That's no problem at all. Now imagine this is the outside of your garment. If you fold that back, here's the hem, and the hem needs to be basted to the main fabric. The machine sews on the hem, and every 3 stitches the needle moves over to the left and does 1 stitch into the garment. Position your fabric and align it properly, like this, and off we go. Cut the threads. This is the garment from the outside. I'll fold it back. Here's the stitching line and the singular stitches made in the main fabric of the garment, really close to the edge. And that's the inside. Next I want to show you how to do a buttonhole. This is our buttonhole foot. Slide the buttonhole foot open. Place the button for which the buttonhole is intended in here. That's the size measurement, so to speak. With the foot installed, it is best to guide the thread through the front, like this. As I said, the snap-on feet are quick to attach. Now I'm going to select a buttonhole program. Let's just go with the quick select option. That's buttonhole number 50. And now it's very important that you pull down the probe lever. If you do not pull down the probe, the machine will not start. You need a piece of fabric. For buttonholes, as well as later for the decorative stitches, please always remember, always use stabilizer under the fabric. You can purchase the following interfacing variants from W6. We have water-soluble or adhesive, stick it underneath the fabric and tear it off after sewing, variants, and we also have the regular standard interfacing, which is a bit cheaper. Now, this is the position for my buttonhole. Foot down. The settings are completed, the probe has been pulled down. The start-stop button is green. If the probe is up, the button will stay red and it doesn't work. So always make sure to pull down the probe. The machine does the rest automatically. Both stitching lines are sewn in one direction. That gives you a particularly neat and even look. You'll be able to sew beautiful buttonholes. There, cut the threads. Now let's do a keyhole-shaped buttonhole next. The machine is not only capable of sewing these regular buttonholes, but also a keyhole-shaped one. You see, there are plenty of different options here. Select program number 54, for example. Press return and select 54. In my case, I'm ready to go as I still have the right button in my buttonhole foot. The size is thus predetermined. Let's cut the threads. I'll just trim the thread tails and show you the result. Just a second. These 2 thread tails need to go. Now, these are 2 beautiful buttonholes that turned out quite great. Take a look. Now let's try hemming a pair of jeans. RTW jeans always come with nice thick stitching lines and often have bulky seams and hems. There you often run the risk of breaking the needle. But I'll show you how to do it right. Use the straight stitch, set a stitch length of 4 mm, so the stitches are not too short, and also use a jeans needle. This will give you at least a 90 gauge, and you can get 2 threads through the eye if you want. So basically, like the twin needle, only you really thread both threads into the same eye of the needle. Alright, position your jeans, lower the foot, then start sewing until you get to the cross seam. This is a flat felt seam, but it's still very bulky. So stop with the needle down in the fabric. Now use the presser foot balancer under your foot. Look, I'm going to slide this under the foot from behind and the foot is going to be lifted. You can purchase it from W6. And now the foot has the same height as the thick seam. Reduce the speed a little and then you're off and running, and now you can sew over this bulky bit quite easily. That's not a problem. Alright, let's stop and raise the needle. We have 2 threads in here, so it may be better not to use the automatic cutter. Let's cut the threads at the side here, and now I want to show you this. Now, if you look closely, you can see the lovely thick stitching. It almost looks better than shop-bought. Of course, you can use this program for other projects, not just jeans. It's also perfectly suited for top stitching, for example. Now let's try some decorative stitches, quilting and nostalgic stitches. I want to show you a few options. I've entered programs 12, 13 and 15 here. Now, if you want to check how your stitched pattern will look, access the preview. For that you press return and the magnifying glass down here. See, this is your stitch pattern sequence. Now let's sew this. Alright, let's go. You can increase the speed, not too slow. Now the machine stopped because I only entered each stitch pattern once. I'll start the sequence again, then it matches the length of fabric. But we can also sew these patterns as a continuous loop. I'm going to show you that in a second. What we have here is basically a single pattern. The single pattern function makes sure that we really sew complete patterns and that the pattern is sewn all the way to the end. There, match perfectly. Cut the threads. You see we have 12, 13 and 15 and again 12, 13, 15 twice in a row. The patterns are complete. Now let's stitch a flower. I'll delete this one, clear the 15, the 13 and the 12. Then you browse for the pattern you want. I'm using number 38. I'll take that as the leaves and now I'll use 47 for the flower. Now this is my flower. Because I've chosen two different stitches, the machine will only sew single patterns. That was already the case with the stitches I chose before. If you select only the stitch pattern, the continuous loop is automatically set. With multiple stitch patterns, the continuous loop must be set manually. To do this, press the return button. No, that's not correct. Wait a minute. Access this again. Then you see the continuous loop symbol. Activate that and the machine will sew your patterns in a loop. Now with these settings, let's sew a chain of flowers. Position your fabric and start. That's it. There, cut the threads. Raise the foot. Let's trim that a little. Where are my scissors? So, there you have it. There's our flower chain and below is the previous sequence. Remember, as soon as you enter different patterns, the machine will only sew a single pattern. If you want the pattern sewn several times, you need to manually set the continuous loop. Then you can repeat the patterns as often as you want. I said at the beginning that we can mirror some patterns horizontally and vertically. Let's select program number 65. It's a dog. You may know that we at W6 have our own company dog. So here we go. I've already entered the dog pattern. That's program number 65. So what do we have to do now? You access the edit mode and there's thread tension or the stitch length and width, and you can mirror your stitch patterns there. The dog stitch is set and you can mirror that now. Look, you can mirror it horizontally, vertically or across the corner. You have a total of 4 options and so you can rotate the dog as you need it. Speaking of decorative stitches, let me show you how to do lettering stitches. Access the alphabets and choose an uppercase A. Then press return and choose a space. Back into the alphabets. Now we need a lowercase n, then back up as we need the space, then down and another lowercase n. And so you continue back and forth, a space, down, a lowercase a, up, a space. Now I want another decorative stitch at the end. I'll go for the heart. That's program 80. Let's browse up, it's quicker. So here we have the 80. So space 80. Now we can try this. It'll look nice and big. Lower the foot and start. Nothing can go wrong. We'll just write Anna and a space. Why? Here's the symbol for single patterns. That's what we want in this case. We only want the name once. There, all sewn up. Cut the threads. Now let's take a look. Look at that. It looks really big. Anna and the little heart. Now here's the thing, of course I've used embroidery stabilizer and I'm using a stable felt fabric. If you have a slinky or stretchy fabric, it might be advisable that you then use Pressure-Fit B. Pressure-Fit B has a kind of channel on the underside and the decorative stitches, especially satin stitches and letters, are easier fed under this foot. Next I want to show you how to do a satin stitch. Let's use stitch 101. I've selected that already. I'm also using the satin foot, so the stitching is neatly fed under the foot. Let's start sewing. So we've reached the end. There, cut the threads. Not only can we mirror horizontally and vertically, we can also elongate a pattern. That means a pattern can be lengthened. The very first thing we do is delete the previous pattern. Let's use program number 92, once in its regular length. Then I'll select the same pattern, but with different settings. This is the editor where you can mirror patterns or elongate as you like. I'm going to set a 5-fold elongation. You can make patterns up to 5 times longer. That's all you have to do. Let's try this. There we've got it. That's that. Trim the threads and you can see the following. This is the regular pattern that we did first, stitch pattern 101. This is number 92, regular and elongated 5 times. Look how long this is. With these options you can get really creative. Now let's try out the cording foot. Let's make a quick bookmark. I've got 2 cords in here now. I'll use program number 97. I changed the stitch width from 6 to 7 because the area across the cords is a bit thicker. You need to make sure that the cords are next to each other and then you are ready to go. There, cut the threads. Take out the fabric and the cords as well. Trim all the thread tails. Now that's finished and this is what it looks like. Finally, I'd like to demonstrate the hemming foot, so it's important that you correctly guide the fabric into the coil. Use the regular straight stitch, please, with the needle at the center. Let's go. See, this is the point of the hemming foot. Down here, the fabric has been nicely folded under twice. So properly folded and perfectly thin. Lasts forever. You can wash this again and again. Ladies and gentlemen, let me give you a little advice. Subscribe to our W6 WERTARBEIT newsletter. If you subscribe, you'll be constantly kept up to date and, most importantly, can also benefit from our weekly discount promotions. Thank you.